The crowd outside Megasave Supermarket froze as a Bentley Flying Spur eased against the dusty curb. Lagos heat shimmered on the bonnet like a sheet of glass. When the rear door opened, the city exhaled. Adesuwa Bankole stepped out tall, poised, her cream Ankara jumpsuit tailored like a promise. Cameras didn't need to be present for people to behave like cameras. Heads angled, mouths parted, whispers ran. Everyone knew her name. Founder and CEO of LuminaTech. Cover star. Philanthropist. A woman mothers pointed to when they told their daughters who they could become. But Adesuwa wasn't here for wine or photo op. She was walking to a man by a stack of cracked crates. He wore a brown coat the color of yesterday's sky and a green shirt that had forgotten soap. His beard was a thicket. His hair reached in every direction like it had been arguing with the wind and lost. A black bag slouched at his side, as if it carried the last of his life. He looked up, surprised that she'd stopped where people sped up. "My name is Adesuwa," she said gently. He blinked. Ifeanyi Okoro." Her voice didn't rise. It dug deeper. "I've listened to you here. The way you talk about datasets, product funnels, risk. You speak like someone who's lived that world." She took a breath, heart thudding in a way boardrooms never triggered. "I don't know your full story, but I believe you just need a second chance." Silence drew a ring around them. "I'm asking something crazy," she said. "Will you marry me?" A gasp broke from somewhere, then a ripple of them. Ifeanyi stared as if language had left him. The hurt in his eyes hovered between disbelief and an old grief that had never been allowed a door. "If you mean it," he said at last, voice low and steady. "Go inside, buy a ring, and kneel. Ask me like you mean it." The crowd hissed and clucked bold, rude, mad. Adesuwa didn't argue with his terms. She turned, walked into Megasave, and returned minutes later with a ring that threw light back at the sun. Dust gusted at her heels as she bent on one knee. "Ifeanyi Okoro," she said, hand steady now. "Will you marry me?" The street held its breath. He did not. "Yes," he whispered, and everything that had been still began to move. The leather sighed when Ifeanyi sat, careful as a man afraid to wake a spell. He clutched his bag to his chest and fixed his eyes on the windshield, as if looking left or right might break the scene. Lagos unfurled ahead, Okadas buzzing, Danfo's arguing with lanes, the comic timing of pedestrians who trusted destiny more than brake pads. The flying spur hummed through it all, insulated and impossible. Adesuwa didn't crowd him with questions. She drove like she negotiated, decisive, eyes ahead, a sure hand easing through traffic. Victoria Island rose in glass and angles. Bridges laced water. Billboards sold futures. Ifeanyi's reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Red eyes from dust, not tears. Beard like a map of wandering. Fingernails carrying the color of weeks. "We'll make a quick stop," she said. He nodded. Words were expensive in the first hour after miracles. Kingsman Grooming and Spa stood like a small palace. Marble floors, gold-rimmed mirrors, chairs that looked more throne than seat. The doorman's bow stalled when his gaze found Ifeanyi. Adesuwa's "He's with me" reset the room like a software patch. Staff moved. Water ran. Clippers sang. Years unspooled into the basin. When they handed him a mirror, a man he remembered blinked back. The jawline he'd misplaced. The eyes, tired, yes, but bright with a pilot flame. He touched his face like one checks a healed scar. New clothes followed. Crisp white shirt, slim black trousers, loafers that made the floor feel musical. In the reflection, Lagos no longer shrugged at him. It listened. Outside, the car waited like a kept promise. "Thank you," he managed. "We're not done," she said softly. The gates they turned into later were the kind that swallowed sound. Palm trees framed the sweep of a white home, all glass and light, with a fountain that tried to tell a story in water. A golden retriever announced a new chapter with full-throated joy. "This is your house?" he asked. Adesuwa smiled. "It's our home now." The word home landed somewhere beneath his ribs and knocked again, to be sure it was welcome. He didn't step into the foyer. He arrived. Vanilla and lavender braided the air. Art from Accra and Cairo watched from the walls. A staircase curved like it had more to say. On it, A small figure appeared, curls haloed by the afternoon. "Mommy, who is that?" the girl asked, still half in a nap. "This is my friend," Adesuwa said, kneeling to meet her eyes. "His name is Ifeanyi. He'll be spending a lot of time with us." The child studied him with the seriousness only children and judges manage. "Are you a good person?" "I'm trying to be," he said. "Then you can stay," she declared. "But no scary stories at night." He laughed. The sound surprised him. He hadn't heard himself in that tone in years. The guest suite could have signed a non-disclosure for a 5-star hotel. A balcony took Lagos in its arms. A bathroom the size of memories stunned him. The bed held him like a mother who forgives. Dinner was jollof rice with fried plantain and grilled chicken. Heat and sweetness and smoke. He ate slowly, reverent. Later, on the balcony, city lights sequined the dark. Adesuwa brought 2 glasses, wine that tasted like the color red. "Tell me who you are," she said. "My name is Ifeanyi Okoro," he began, throat tight. "And once, I was one of the best data scientists in Lagos." He spoke of models and metrics, banks and ministries, whiteboards and applause. A wife named Kelechi. 2 children, Amanda and Namdi. December. A flight to Dubai. He was to follow a day later. The plane did not. No survivors. Words frayed. He described the way silence became a neighborhood. How a bridge can be an address. Adesuwa listened without interrupting, a gift he felt in his bones. When he finished, her eyes were wet. "My parents died in a crash too," she said softly. "And Tara's father disappeared when she was 2. I waited. Then I learned to live. For her. For me." He turned to her, as if the city had a new skyline. "You built all this after that." "I built because of that," she said. They sat without filling the silence. Some quiet deserves room. He woke to birdsong, not the harsh chorus of traffic under concrete. Sunlight slipped through curtains like a kind thief. For a moment, he lay still, testing the edges of reality. The sheet felt like the cool side of a good day. He touched his trimmed beard and smiled at the proof his memory wasn't inventing mercy. A knock tapped gently. "Come in," he said. The little face from the staircase peered around the door. "Good morning, Mr. Ifeanyi. Mommy says breakfast is ready." "Good morning, Tara," he replied. "You can call me Uncle Ifeanyi." She grinned and disappeared with the urgency of children and good news. Downstairs, the table was a small festival. Eggs, warm bread, pap, fruit, freshly squeezed orange juice. Adesuwa wore a navy suit that made the morning look organized. Her laptop slept open by a bowl. "I hope you're hungry," she said. "It's been a while since breakfast looked like decisions," he said, sitting. She closed the laptop. "Eat. You'll need your strength." "We're going somewhere?" he asked. "You're starting work," she said, the way surgeons say. "We're going to fix this." He coughed. "Work. I didn't kneel for pity, Ifeanyi." No judgment in her tone, only direction. "I see a mind LuminaTech needs. You're brilliant. Rust polishes." He stared at the butter like it had become a clock. "I don't know if I'm ready." "I do," she said, and the certainty in her voice felt like a hand extended across a river. After breakfast, the city greeted them with weekday swagger. LuminaTech's tower caught the sun in glass and grins. Inside, the air carried the hum of purposeful people. Branded tees, ID cards, greetings that moved at the pace of targets. Heads turned as they walked the executive floor. Some eyes asked questions their mouths wouldn't. Adesuwa opened a door into a room with 3 monitors, whiteboards tattooed in charts, and a small stand bearing a new nameplate. Ifeanyi Okoro, head of data intelligence. He read it twice, as if the second reading would discover the trick. "This is for me." "It is," she said. "You'll report to me directly." The room smelled faintly of dry erase markers and possibility. He stepped in. Somewhere in his chest, a door unlatched. The first week tasted like old muscle memory. Sour at the start, then sweet when warmed. Tools had evolved. Acronyms wore new clothes. Dashboards had learned fresh tricks. But patterns still wanted to be found. Data still hummed a key if you listened long enough. Ifeanyi listened. He rebuilt a churn model from the ground up. then mapped a goofy little anomaly no one had bothered to ask about. The anomaly turned out to be a leak, a drip that had been costing LuminaTech money one polite percentage at a time. He quantified it. He proposed a fix. The fix saved a number with too many zeros to be a coincidence. Adesuwa arrived at his desk with a file and a smile that didn't need witnesses. 250 million naira in annual losses plugged, she said. The board is impressed. I'm just doing the job, he said, half embarrassed, wholly alive. That's what makes you great. Their eyes stayed a fraction longer than office etiquette recommends. He broke the gaze first, not out of discomfort but gratitude-shyness. Nights, he returned to the balcony, where they first traded truths. Lagos glittered like a memory refusing dimness. Tara sometimes shuffled out in pajamas to complain about bedtime, then negotiated one story that was never scary. He told stories about stars that lose their way and find a friend who points them home. One night, rain stitched the air. Adesuwa asked, "Why did you say yes at Megasave?" "Because I thought you were mad," he said, and they laughed together, letting the laughter grow roots. Then he added, "And because there was something in your eyes, courage, maybe grace. I needed to believe someone still believed in me." "I did," she said simply. He looked at her hands, at the ring he had not yet earned but tried to. "I made you kneel," he said. "You made me mean it," she answered. The city's glow reflected in their glasses. Somewhere below, traffic argued with rain. Up here, two people negotiated a future without signing anything. By month's end, Ifeanyi had a rhythm. Mornings with Pap and Tara's questions. Is data like soup if you stir it? Days that moved from stand-ups to strategy. Evenings with balcony sunsets. His team grew from skeptical to loyal in increments marked not by speeches, but by solved problems. He mentored interns like someone had once mentored him. Merciless on sloppy thinking. Generous on honest mistakes. Not everyone clapped. On the 13th floor, a director who had wanted the head of data intelligence role-nursed a public politeness and a private grievance. He called it governance concerns and wrote emails that smiled with their teeth. Adesuwa wasn't blind. She let the man hang his own rope of rhetoric while she gathered outcomes. One afternoon, she set a thin folder on Ifeanyi's desk. "Press wants a profile on you," she said. "Human interest angle. From bridge to boardroom." "I don't want to be anyone's headline," he said. "We'll control the story or someone else will," she replied. "You choose." He chose silence for the moment, a strategy as old as choirs. At home, Tara staged a welcome ritual the night his official LuminaTech badge arrived. She'd drawn a lopsided cake on paper and stabbed candles into a real one with dramatic sincerity. "To Uncle Ifeanyi's new tag," she declared. They ate, and he pretended not to tear up when she handed him a crayon card that read, in serious handwriting, "Welcome home." Later that week, Adesuwa stood at his office doorway, half haloed by corridor light. "Walk with me," she said. They toured a floor that didn't yet exist, not in drywall, but in plans. She spoke of LuminaTech's next act, AI tools for hospitals upcountry, school analytics for rural districts, credit scoring that didn't punish the unbanked for being unseen. Ifeanyi added architecture where she drew vision, guardrails where she drew highways. "Build it with me," she said. "I am," he answered. And for once, a sentence was enough. They filmed the profile in a modest way because Ifeanyi insisted. No slow-motion struts, no violin swells. Just a desk, a whiteboard, Lagos out a window. He told the truth without performing it. Grief that pulled him under. A bridge that did not judge. A woman who knelt and meant it. The producer listened and didn't try to make the tears photogenic. When the piece aired, it didn't trend so much as it traveled. WhatsApp groups, office lunch tables, hair salon TVs. People didn't argue about whether it was real. They argued about what it meant. Some saw it as a fairy tale. Others saw it as a memo about mercy. The director on the 13th floor saw it as a threat dressed as inspiration. Within LuminaTech, applications spiked. Brilliant resumes found their courage. The data team became a destination, not a detour. Ifeanyi hired carefully, favoring curiosity over swagger, clarity over jargon. He taught them that numbers are language with dialects and lies. On a Friday, Adesuwa leaned on the doorframe of his office. "You saved us again," she said, tossing him a stress ball shaped like Nigeria. "Vendor billing this time." "I'm becoming boring," he said. "You're becoming reliable." That night, back on the balcony, the city was a string of patient lights. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Because you're what I would have wanted if the roles were reversed," she said. "Someone to see beyond the dust." He nodded. "Dust settles. People shouldn't." Tara padded out, wrapped in a blanket like a burrito, and wedged herself between them. "Tell me a not-scary story." "Once upon a time," Ifeanyi began, "a city tried to be too loud to hear hearts. But some hearts speak in a frequency cities can't drown." Tara fell asleep before the ending. Adesuwa didn't need it either. Some stories finished themselves. Months became the kind of year that makes calendars feel useful. LuminaTech's hospital triage product shipped. A state ministry signed a pilot. A rural school dashboard went live, and, for the first time, principals in far places could see attendance like a pulse. In the boardroom, Ifeanyi's models didn't dazzle, they convinced. He learned when to be silent, until a bad idea weakened itself, and when to put a number on the table like a verdict. He learned that some men defend their ignorance with humor, and some with volume. He brought neither to work. But wounds don't heal obediently. December approached, and with it, the day grief kept a key to. He spent the morning in code, the afternoon in meetings, the evening in a car parked a street away from the airport. He watched planes rise like second chances and land like returns. He did not cry. He remembered faces, without needing to squeeze pain for proof he loved them. When he returned home, Adesuwa didn't ask where he'd been. She placed a bowl of pepper soup in his hands and sat beside him until the steam stopped playing. "Some days you live beside the ache," she said, "not under it." He nodded. "Today I lived on its porch." At work, the 13th floor director moved from memos to maneuvers. He floated a rumor: nepotism, favoritism, optics. It hung in the air like damp. Adesuwa let legal and HR do their jobs, without turning it into theater. Ifeanyi responded by delivering such a clean quarter that the rumor had to find other weather. One evening, she appeared at his office door, carrying a small box. "Open it," she said. Inside lay a platinum ring. No dust this time. No crowd. Only the soft percussion of rain on glass. "What are you doing?" he asked, smiling despite himself. "Practicing not letting pride speak first," she said. "But tonight is your stage." He stood, felt the old tremor of beginnings, and reached into his pocket. The rooftop had learned their steps by now. Lego stretched around them, traffic making neon rivers, music from a birthday party 3 balconies over arguing cheerfully with the wind. Tara watched from the doorway with the house staff, eyes wide at the solemnity adults manufacture around love. Ifeanyi knelt, not because tradition demanded a posture, but because humility does. He didn't clear his throat. He knew the words before he needed them. "When you found me, I didn't believe in anything that required breath," he said. "You did not rescue a man. You remembered one. You showed me that grace can be noisy, like pulling up in a Bentley, and also quiet, like waiting while a man learns to eat slowly again." He lifted the ring. "I want to do this right. Adesuwa Bankole, will you marry me?" Her yes began as a laugh trying to be a sob, and ended as a sob trying to be a laugh. Tara clapped so hard she invented rhythm. The staff cheered like family is defined by food, not blood. He slid the ring on her finger, and for a moment, they stood in a circle drawn by a city that didn't know it was blessing them. That weekend, they told only who needed to know. The auntie who raised Adesuwa after the crash, the uncle who taught Ifeanyi to shave properly, 3 friends who had survived ambition with them. The news did not hit social media. It sat in living rooms, sipping malt drinks and smiling. At work, he wore a grin he tried to hide with maturity. He failed. People forgive that failure. "Rooftop," a teammate guessed. "Rooftop," he admitted. Adesuwa passed him in the corridor and didn't break stride, but the corner of her mouth held a conspiracy. That night, under a sky Lagos had rented from God, they wrote the first lines of a new chapter neither owed the other, but both chose. The wedding at Eco Hotel and Suites didn't try to outshine Lagos. It asked the city to be itself, and then added light. Lace shimmered. Gellies soared like architecture. Highlife poured from the band with a horn section that refused to be background. The aisle looked like a runway for a different kind of takeoff. Dignitaries came because respect is a form of RSVP. Tech founders came because curiosity is. Aunties came because love arrives with food. Somewhere at the back, a Kingsman barber stood taller, proud of a haircut that had begun a story. Tara walked ahead as chief flower girl with the seriousness of a surgeon. At the front, Ifeanyi waited, jawline as if cut yesterday, eyes carrying the right amount of water. When Adesuwa appeared, the room learned how to inhale again. Vows were simple. No poetry that tried to impress. Only sentences that promised direction. To listen. To tell the truth even when it's tired. To keep dust out of the other's eyes. To remember December kindly. Rings were exchanged. Names were said with the weight they deserve. A pastor spoke of love that chooses daily, not once. At the reception, speeches wrestled to be the one people remembered. Adesuwa won without trying. Grace is not an accident, she said. It is a decision that repeats. Ifeanyi's toast was quieter. Once I lived under a bridge, he began. Now I live in a house built by someone's courage. He looked at her. I will spend the rest of my life paying courage forward. People stood. Some cried. Some recorded. The band switched to a song that made even shy data scientists consider dancing. They did. When midnight folded the day into memory, they slipped away to the balcony that had seen first truths, now wearing rings that asked them to keep telling the right kind of lies to each other. White lies like, you dance well, when the joy, not the steps, is what matters. Peace does not announce itself with fireworks. It arrives as routine, the good kind. Morning coffee. Shared calendars. Tara's homework on the table between a strategy deck and a bowl of suya. Whispered jokes in hallways where people think leaders don't laugh. Months later, Adesuwa stood in the kitchen stirring okra soup, an apron defying the myth that brilliance and domesticity cannot sit at the same counter. Ifeanyi paused in the doorway, watched her, and fell in love the way people do at odd times, on Tuesdays, at sinks. What? She asked, catching him watching. Nothing, he said, which meant everything. He wrapped his arms around her. The soup forgave the pause. 2 months after that, a nurse placed a boy in their arms. They named him Adesuwa Bankole, Amadi for free man. Bankole Okoro to prove families can be arithmetic and poetry. The name tasted right in their mouths, like something they'd been practicing to say. Tara took Big Sister, like a job title. She fed him with supervision, rocked him with choreography, and attempted a diaper once, then declared certain human responsibilities should be means-tested. At LuminaTech, Ifeanyi coded between feedings and naps, not out of hustle culture, but because creation, in any form, demands you bring your best hour somewhere. He built a prototype for a clinic triage tool that guessed acuity before vitals were taken. He wrote documentation that read like instructions, not riddles. When Amadi slept on his chest, Ifeanyi felt the weight of a future that hadn't been promised, but had arrived anyway. He whispered lines he would want his son to remember long after voices lower into memory. Love is a decision. Grace is a practice. Pride ends where love begins. Outside, Legos kept being loud. Inside, a home kept choosing quiet. The rumor matured into a narrative the way mold becomes a pattern if you don't clean the corner. The 13th floor director, armed with a slide deck of insinuations, courted allies who preferred politics to product. He framed it as stewardship. Was it wise to elevate a man with such a public story so quickly? Had lines blurred? Could LuminaTech survive press attention if the origin myth outshone the roadmap? Adesuwa scheduled a board session and did not bring Ifeanyi to fight for himself. She brought his work. Charts, not charm. Savings quantified. Uptime lengthened. Client retention bent upward, like a smile that finally believed itself. A hospital CIO joined by video to explain, with zero romance, how a LuminaTech tool had shaved minutes off triage and minutes, in medicine, are arterial. When the director tried to pivot to perception, the chair cut in. Perception follows performance, she said, and performance is on this wall. After, in her office, Adesuwa found Ifeanyi standing at the window. hands in pockets, watching clouds practice drama without rain. You left me out, he said. I left you free, she replied. You don't have to defend your existence. You only have to do your job. He nodded, tension downshifting. Thank you. Go home early, she said. Take Amadi to see the fountain. I might stop by Kingsman on the way, he said, smiling. Let them see their handiwork grew up. By Tara Puff Puff, she added. Bribery works, he admitted. That evening, the three of them tossed crumbs to fish in the fountain that always seemed too dignified for fish. Tara narrated the fish's politics with the confidence of a pundit. Amadi gurgled like a backup singer. Ifeanyi watched the light on the water and felt gratitude arrive again, unasked but not unearned. Sometimes the executive floor whispers. Sometimes the garden answers. 2 weeks after the whisper war on the 13th floor, the board called a special session. No crisis banners, just an agenda with too many bullet points and coffee that tasted like decisions. Adesuwa arrived with her usual economy. No entourage, a slim folder, a mind sharpened by sleep she'd earned. Ifeanyi took a seat along the glass wall, not at the table. He wasn't there to posture. He was there to supply truth on demand. The chair opened with pleasantries and pivoted to governance optics. The phrase men deploy when they wish to make character look like a compliance problem. The director from 13 cleared his throat and arranged his expressions. He spoke of accelerated elevation, press glare, and role clarity. He did not speak of numbers, because numbers had learned not to take his calls. Before we debate perception, Adesuwa said, let's measure reality. She slid a single-page dashboard to each member. Revenue uplift by product line, churn curve bending down, uptime trend after the incident response overhaul, client satisfaction deltas broken out by sector. The boardroom quieted in the way good rooms do when truth enters, wearing simple clothes. Who authored the data strategy behind this? The chair asked. My head of data intelligence, she said, tipping her chin toward the glass. Ifeanyi didn't wave. He didn't need to. Questions followed, real ones, not performative. How had billing leakage been caught? What was the control for survivorship bias in the retention model? Where were the human-in-the-loop guardrails in the clinic triage tool? Ifeanyi answered each without reaching for jargon. He put the logic on the table like chess. Here is the opening. Here's the mid-game. Here are the checkmates we've prevented. The director tried one last time. Pivoting to ethics. Was it appropriate for a CEO to employ and marry the same man? The room shifted. Adesuwa didn't flinch. Chronology matters, she said evenly. We were engaged months after he was hired. Disclosure was filed. Recusal lines were drawn. Independent comp review instituted. Dotted line reporting created. We didn't break our rules. We wrote better ones. The chair looked around. No one blinked. Votes were taken. Unanimous ratification of the controls, commendation for the data team, and a tidy request. Codify this playbook. Afterward, in the corridor, Ifeanyi exhaled what he hadn't shown. You didn't need me. I needed your work, she said, and I needed a board that remembers the difference. He smiled. They didn't blink. They didn't have to, she replied. We brought light. That evening, they celebrated by doing nothing unusual. Pepper soup, Tara's homework, Amadi's giggles. Some victories prefer to end as evenings, not headlines. 3 months later, the headlines arrived anyway. LuminaTech's clinic triage rolled from pilot to province. A second state signed with the kind of handshake that changes budgets. The school dashboards crossed 10,000 students, catching absentee spikes before they hardened into repeated terms. The churn curve dipped like it had finally remembered its manners. Savings from the billing leak kept flowing. Quiet water headed for a loud sea. Headlines don't need truth to trend. They need rhythm. On Monday, a blog with a reputation for smoke posted, Angel or Agenda? The Billionaire, The Bridge, and The Boardroom. The cover art was a cut-and-paste fever dream. Adesuwa in a halo. Ifeanyi in grayscale. A ring enlarged until it looked like a shackle. The piece insinuated savior complex, PR choreography, and a fast-track fairy tale. By Wednesday, substance answered. The profile they tried to keep modest refused to be small. A cover shoot in the office, no stage drama, Just glass, daylight, and that balcony became the spread people taped to shop counters. LuminaTech. Light, not noise, the magazine declared. Inside, charts told stories. Hospital leads spoke in minutes saved. School principals spoke in children seen. And one page, Ifeanyi Okoro, from bridge to boardroom, circulated everywhere. The city's favorite evidence that second chances can compound. Earlier that day, in a salon 2 bridges away, a woman paused on that cover. Eyes resting on the jawline time had sharpened. "Madam, I'm so proud of this Mr. Ifeanyi," the stylist sighed. The woman laughed softly. "I'm part of that story." "And how? You like gist," she said, ending it with a smile. On her way out, she slid the magazine into her bag, clipped the page at home, and traced a quiet path. Mutuals, a press page, an alum who still picked calls. When a working link finally surfaced, she whispered to the empty room, "Got you." She did not message. Not yet. At home, they didn't throw a party. Legos threw one for them. Congratulatory hampers arrived with bows large enough to be opinions. Aunties occupied the kitchen with coolers that declared sovereignty. Tara built a playlist like a tiny tyrant with excellent taste. Even the Kingsman barber came in a starched caftan to shake Ifeanyi's hand like a man greeting his own plot twist. When the gate finally clicked shut and the house exhaled, the quiet was earned. Dishes stacked into neat truths. Floor side. The fountain outside resumed its patient sentence. "Come," Ifeanyi said, palm up. "No band," Adesuwa teased. "Just us," he answered. They danced in the living room to music their bodies remembered without help. A slow turn, a shared breath, a forehead kiss that said more than speeches. His hands found the small of her back. Hers traced the line of his jaw. The Kingsman team still took pride in. Buttons learned courtesy. Zippers negotiated. They chose closeness over spectacle, softness over speed. Careful present. The way you handle something you've promised to keep. The city argued outside. Inside, they practiced a language that doesn't need translation. Later, beneath the ceiling fan's unhurried sermon, Adesuwa watched him in the soft light and let the truth land where it had been circling all evening. I didn't let him down. He didn't let me down. Bringing him to LuminaTech, this was right. "You didn't let us down," she murmured. "We didn't let each other down," he said, kissing her fingers. In the nursery, Amadi issued small royal decrees in his sleep. Down the hall, Tara built a fort out of blankets and dreams. The house held them all like a good sentence holds meaning, cleanly. A phone buzzed once on the bedside table. Not the needy chatter of a group chat. A single, almost shy vibration. Ifeanyi glanced, habit, not hunger. "Hey, it's Ada. Congrats on the cover. There's something you should know about someone close to you at LuminaTech. We should talk tonight." The name opened a corridor he hadn't walked in years. Exam week suya at 11 p.m. A laugh like clean glass. 2 people diagramming futures in the margins of lecture notes until the margins ran out. No fight, just life's geometry. Paths that refused to intersect. He didn't turn the screen away. He didn't move his hand from Adesuwa's. The message sat like a visitor at the door, polite, present, bringing weather. "Work?" she asked, drowsy, eyes still closed. "No," he said, steady. "An old friend." She made a small sound of trust and slipped back into sleep. Ifeanyi locked the phone and left it face up. Nothing hidden in a room that had witnessed their yes. He drew her closer, his arm answering a question she hadn't asked. Outside, Lagos rehearsed tomorrow. Inside, the night held them steady. By morning, the magazine cover would be everywhere. Barbershops, bank queues, church gates. By afternoon, HR would drown in resumes. By evening, Ada's line would still wait, patient as weather, dangerous only if met with secrecy. For now, success cooled on countertops. Love stayed warm. The room was quiet, except for the question glowing in 5 letters. "Hey, it's Ada."
Love is warm. The message is colder. Watch what Ada brings, whether Ifeanyi stands firm, and how LuminaTech weathers the storm next episode. Like, subscribe, and share tales of love and revenge.